trauma because I've sat with people and I've talked to them and I've heard them say that. I wonder if I'm actually gay because of what happened to me with my dad, and like clients
people have those real conversations in real life, but in online and in public discourse, people act as if these conversations don't happen, and if they do, they're completely invalid, and I hate that.
Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. It's John for John Chen Outs the World. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video therapy session from Blaire White and the celebrity therapist David Sutcliffe. And so this is going to be really juicy, especially Blaire White being a very controversial figure in the LGBT community as a trans individual who is unapologetically conservative and states the fact that she is in fact a biological male. And so just given the brief introduction here, as you'll see, I'm so anticipatory of just a raw emotional background of how Blaire has gone through her upbringing, which was very, very adverse. So just thinking about the previous videos that I've seen, a lot of bullying, a lot of abuse, and ultimately how that's tied back to her transgender identity. So let's just get into it. Make sure you like and subscribe so that we can push these videos forward.
Have you done any therapy before?
Not in my adult life recently.
Right.
Like scattered throughout my life. My parents took me to a therapist, or my mom did, when I was young. Like observed a lot of, I guess now that I'm thinking of it, really like bad issues I was having as a kid.
What issues?
I recently talked to her on the phone, and she was we're kind of opening up about the past in my childhood now, because I had a super bad upbringing. And I'm finally in the space to kind of like look at it. Mm-hmm. So now I'm more interested in doing therapy and like learning. I'm on neuroscience a lot lately, like learning about how the brain works, learning about repressed memories, which I've also experienced recently, and just kind of understanding the past to get a better grip on the present.
Yep.
So yeah.
When you say you had you had a bad childhood?
Oh yeah.
What was going on in the house?
A lot. Oh my God. So
you grew up in Northern California, a small town?
Very small town, Northern California.
Brothers, sisters?
I had a half brother. And my mom and my dad and 2 dogs. So like super like normal nuclear family type deal. But I was definitely born into a lot of trauma from them, like what they had from their lives before me.
Sure.
And I definitely had no allies growing up, let's put it that way.
Right.
I was like one bitch against the world. One bitch army.
So is there any meaning that you've made of it, or just over stress?
Definitely there's a lot to understand about what got me here, which is like honestly such a beautiful life. As much as I can harp on like the negative things I went through as a kid, like I love my life now. I've really become the exact person that like childhood me needed, like in many ways. I've actually corrected a lot of patterns I was born into from my parents and my family.
Did you feel alone in your family?
Super.
And alone in your town, I guess? I mean, you're obviously, you're different from a very young age.
Yeah, and everyone saw it, even before me actually.
Everyone saw it?
Yeah.
That must have been, how was that?
It was twofold. It was painful because I endured a lot of bullying, but also I wouldn't take it back for the world because I learned so much from it. And I know that people can feel a certain way about hearing that. I'm not saying kids should be bullied, especially not necessarily the way I was, which was like relentless, getting called a faggot in preschool, which is like, I didn't know the word faggot. You know what I mean? It just happened. I was like, what is that? So,
Because you were effeminate at a...
Yeah.
Right out of the gate.
Oh yeah, I was there.
You were there.
Basically out the womb. That's what my parents said.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And how did your parents respond to that?
Well, it was bizarre. Like my mom was totally fine with it. And then my dad, I don't want to necessarily say everything that he was, because I haven't been open about that with anyone on camera or even in real life yet. But he was, a really bad person, a really dark, damaged person that passed a lot of his darkness into me. So
Was that just in his energy, or was he acting out on that?
Actions.
He was abusive physically?
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily say exactly what form of abuse, but like, you know, the kind that will give you trauma.
Right.
For sure. And maybe come up in repressed memories when you're 30, which I learned is actually very common.
Repressed memories.
Well, that can happen that late.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah, I never knew that, you know. I had like a narrative once I escaped my hometown and my family.
Escaped. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a narrative that once I escaped, I was good. I didn't have any problems, you know. I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. I'm the first self-made person. I'm the first person to move out of my hometown, really, or little area at least, and to break a lot of the curses that they had, like in patterns.
Yeah.
So I had this narrative in my head that I'm good. I'm the only good one in my family.
Right.
And in some ways I am, but there's a lot of damage that I'm realizing is there, so now I'm fixing it.
Interesting. So are you angry at all about, I mean, I guess your mom, maybe your mom, but your dad, he was abusive and...
Him, I don't have any grace for. I don't really know.
Why?
Just because of the specific type of monster he was. I don't really know.
You don't forgive
him? No.
Yeah.
No, and I also don't relate to the people who are like, forgiving's about you. It's like, is it? I mean, people say it, so maybe you really feel that way, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more interested in healing whatever damage he did.
Right.
Which to me, that's making it about me. That's prioritizing myself.
Yeah.
I don't need to just say some mantra of like, I forgive him because it's about him and not me.
Right.
That's weird to me.
Have you, well, I guess you haven't done a lot of therapy, so you don't really know, but I don't know if you intuit, like, what was the meaning you made of that? Like the child, that your father's abusive towards you? Because the father is a very powerful figure in our lives as an archetype. And if we're being abused by the father and he's not there for us, creating safety, I mean, that's...
All right, so David Sutcliffe, he's coming off very like psychoanalysis in his methodology. I mean, using the term archetype, that's a very psychoanalysis type of background. Now, other types of cognitive and CBT psychologists will use these types of terms too, if they really like to go back to psychoanalysis, Jung, Freud. But it's true, like having childhood developmental issues are obviously going to be able to affect your personhood now. Everybody knows that. That's just like pop psychology 101.
Safety, I mean, that's really the primary job of the father. Do you have any sense of like the meaning you made of that?
No, because, well, again, it's kind of twofold, the answer.
Like he let you down.
Oh, for sure. Worse than that, you know,
Worse
just like failure, flop, monster, evil. But, you know, a lot of the actions on his part were actually buried deep down in my psyche. So they didn't start coming up until about 29, 30. So in one way, I didn't make any sense of it. But then also what's really fascinating about that is like my body always knew that he was like a demon. This is going to sound crazy. Is I hope you get cancer and fucking die, you fucking cunt. I was like 17 or 18. And it was triggered by him asking me to take the trash out. And I just said that from the top of the stairs. And he looked at me with basically a knowledge that he deserved it. Like he didn't even fight back. 2 weeks later, he got cancer and died. Out of nowhere, full body cancer.
Damn.
So.
Dang, that's just like, I don't know if that was God or the devil, but just like she literally put a curse out there into the world, into his body, and he passed away. That's insane, thinking about the effect of our words. But also, I think for her, she's made sense of it in such a spiritual sense as well. I think that her background, there must be some type of like Christianity, you know, using these terms like grace and demon. Those are very much religious terms and Christian terms at that. So the fact that she's been able to talk about these at length at this age, you know, how as a 17-year-old cursing her dad out and not actually feeling like it was unwarranted. He knew that something was up, and that's just messed up, super messed up.
Wow.
I don't know what that means, but I said that to say that I never had a logical, concrete reason as a kid to hate him, but I always knew I did.
Well, you had logical, concrete reasons to hate him. Did
No,
you
yeah,
not?
but the repressed memories, I didn't actually growing up remember what
see.
he had done to me specifically. And it's a very
Right.
specific thing he did. So I just always still felt the energy of what that action was. And it made me hate him forever. That's why my brain works like that. That's why I have this view of this thing that is whatever, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
Is it in you? Do you think
Yeah.
there's it's in you, that darkness?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of,
Does it scare you?
no.
No?
Because
Do you know it? Mm-hmm. You sure?
Maybe not fully,
Right.
because I'm always
right.
learning. But
Yeah.
But I know that, you know, I, like everyone, is capable of good and evil.
Right.
And
Of course.
it's in me, but, you know, like anything.
Well, it's in all of us.
Yeah. You just learn how to hone it and use it for good. I feel like you either heal it or you spread it. Mm-hmm. You heal it or you lash out at the world.
Right.
And I've lashed out at the world at certain times.
Right.
You know, one of the criticisms of me, and it's correct, used to be a lot more, but it's still sometimes correct, is that I get a little angry. You know, online, like my tone of voice sometimes will be very
Right.
angry, which is passion and which is fire, but also is anger.
And it just
Right. And so she's talking about the anger that she spews on, whether it's just crazy conservatives or more so those who are in the liberal faction these days, especially since she's been red-pilled. She was red-pilled, you know, before Trump got elected, around Trump's election. And I think that really spilled over into more of her reactionary videos to those who are in the trans, LGBTQ, progressive faction side of things. And it's very, very incendiary. The way that she talks about them, like it's F you, like you're B or whatever, you know, like just throwing out F-bombs. She's very angry. And I think it's definitely because of the trauma response. And if you read The Body Keeps Score or all these other types of trauma books, definitely a tone of there's something that was really, really pent up. That rage inside is pent up from something else. And this is a way, I think a lot of YouTubers even like have that in them where they just kind of complain and really bitch about things because they are so angry at certain people and the things that have happened to them, but not really worked it out on their own end. And so that the way that they actually look at the world and look at other people is very toxic, unsafe, and ultimately a lot of people kind of resonate with that as well. So a lot of people that probably follow Blaire are fueled by that toxicity and that anger. And some of it is truly warranted. You know, there's a lot of craziness and stupidity out there that she just calls out.
It makes me think of your father and the last thing you said to him, what you know, I hope you die of cancer, you cunt.
I said, I hope you fucking get cancer and die,
Yeah.
you fucking cunt.
Right.
Which is crazy.
It's a curse.
But then I always think about, like, how crazy is it that he really got cancer and died 2 weeks later?
And you could very easily see how the mind would say, did I, you know, somehow I created that, or I
Oh, yeah,
put a
I've had
curse
that
on
thought,
you.
yeah.
And so on some level, like in that framework, it's like you killed your father.
Mm-hmm.
That's super interesting, super spiritual as well. I mean, if she can believe in something and project that out into the world, I mean, that's why as Christians and other people of other faiths, Jews, Muslims, anybody else, you know, even witches and warlocks, people, literally people who believe in witchcraft and the occult, which I do, I believe, like, I've heard from people who have left the New Age, the occult practices, they put things out into the world, right? Manifesting, that's what it is. You put your beliefs out, speak it into existence, and prosperity gospel, Christians understand, you name it, you claim it. And so there's a lot of power in how we speak our beliefs into the world about ourselves, about other people. And ultimately, disease is one of those things that we can actually believe in, and we will become depressed. We will become anxious. Seriously, I still can't get over the fact that she cursed at her dad, you know, his dad at that point. And it actually happened. And as someone who's spiritual as a Christian, like, I truly believe in curses. Like, there are witch doctors in Africa. There are shamans in China. There are people who put curses on people. In the Middle East, there's black magic. You know, there's a lot of witchcraft and occult practices where you literally put curses on people, death curses, and it actually can happen. Whether we believe in that stuff or not, our words have power, and that's what the Bible intrinsically says as well. I think on a psychological level and spiritual level, there's just a lot of depth in what she's saying here, because she truly believes, and I think a lot of us do believe, like, what we speak and say does matter.
Yeah, now I see that, like, that was probably a trauma response. Me being trans is probably a trauma response.
That's interesting.
Dang, she just laid it out there. Okay, I think that a lot of people actually don't see it as such in our day and age. Like, people just think that it's the same thing as being black or gay. Like, being trans is just, you're born that way. You can't change it. But we all kind of know that's not true. Given just the basic research, there is the providential premier, right, in Canada, who recently put out a recommendation saying that we will not transition kids. And there's also people in Australia pulling back recently on the hormone transitionary stuff on kids. And then, of course, you had Tavistock in London, and you have the Dutch protocol in various Western European countries like France, Sweden, etc. They're pulling back on the Dutch protocol, which is transitioning kids 12 and up with hormones and puberty blockers. So we know that there's a lot of misconstrued ideas about what gender dysphoria is. And first of all, you can't be intersex and have gender dysphoria. That's just not, because naturally you're going to be confused about your sex and your gender. So people like to conflate those two. It's like, oh, the existence of trans people makes sense because it's intersex. There's something innately different. No, like, there are gay men who have very feminine brains. You can't just say it based off brain scans that someone is obviously transgender, and you can't just say off of genitalia that someone's transgender, right? Because intersex people, yeah, they're anomalies, but it's a disorder, and a lot of people choose a binary sex to go into that makes them happy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For transgender individuals like Blaire White, it's really difficult because they have these ideas about who they are, and the world tells them, like, oh, you're such a F word, faggot, and then you embody that, and you don't even know what those words mean, but essentially you're sissified, you're viewed in the world through their eyes as someone who's not a man. And so ultimately, like, I've even struggled with my gender identity, I think, a little bit, like, I've always been happy as a boy, but I've been bullied because I was more effeminate growing up, that being called faggot or sissy or pansy, all these things did confuse me about, like, what does it mean to be a man? And for her, for trans Blaire, she obviously had a lot of confusion about who she was. But the issue that she pegged it down to wasn't the trauma. It was actually her being trans. It was an innate issue that she embodied. She thought that that was the problem, her being male as a gender. But in fact, it was also now come to realize a trauma response.
That's interesting.
And it's not politically correct to say, don't care. That's not, within the realm of what people think is acceptable to say. And some of their reasoning for that, I understand. I don't think that that is the case for every person who is trans. I don't think that's the case for every LGBT person. And it may not be the full explanation for why I'm trans in myself, but to deny that it's part of the equation, I just think is ignorant in my own case.
Right. When did you come to that realization?
Really interesting how I escaped my hometown, escaped my family, moved away, changed my name, changed my physical appearance in just about every way I possibly could. I mean, I look nothing like I look. It's actually scary.
She's really saying what's on our minds, on our hearts. I truly believe that there's just a lot of misunderstanding and, victimhood mentality. There's a lot of questions about, like, what is wrong with me. And truly, as a Christian, I believe it's sin. I believe everybody has a disoriented view of their bodies, their selves, their minds, their relationships with other people. And ultimately, that's disorienting. That's very much dysphoric. It's uncomfortable, right? It's ego dyssyntonic. And so when you have to suffer through those anxieties and those questions about who you are, the answer that society gives you is you need to transition your gender. You need to change completely who you are in this way. But the answer, I believe, especially as a Christian, is that you need to have a relationship with God. God created you male, female. And if you have a disorder, sexual development, intersex, i.e. intersex, that's okay. We can try to use the best research and try to respect your body as God created it, disorders and all. But we are not taking away the humanity of any other person, anybody. That's not the whole point. The point is, are we actually adding more damage and doing more harm to somebody by locking off their breasts or creating fake genitalia on their bodies, which are very much proven, shown to be very, very hazardous, very, very hazardous. And Blaire herself has not gone on surgery, which is very dangerous and has a very low success rate. So a lot of people point to these short-term studies about how people feel so much better and euphoric about having undergone these surgeries, but really it's not long-term. And I think for Blaire's sake, she is realizing and listening to all these crazy stories out there about people transitioning and how it's been unsuccessful. Blaire realizes for herself, but also I truly believe she needs to go a deeper step, which she's kind of doing right now, saying that it is a bigger problem. It's a greater problem than just I'm born in the wrong body. It's actually a trauma response. And for a lot of people who are just discomforted, I think people are just encouraged these days to just go along with the narrative that you're born in the wrong body, even if it's just uncomfortable going through puberty. You know, everybody's a little uncomfortable, especially girls, when you are sexualized, when you are put into really harmful spaces where you're sexually assaulted or etc. So it's a real big problem. And I think Blaire is really shedding some light by being honest to her story and her experiences. And I truly believe that it's relevant for a lot of trans people, what she's saying.
Like, we don't want to be in our actual bodies because it's not safe to be in our bodies. And we have all kinds of ways that we leave. And so maybe there was something about you not wanting to be in your actual body, or you wanted to change.
Yeah, I can even resonate, and probably maybe you do too. Like, I was bullied growing up, you know, for being Asian, for being very effeminate, not as a very tough, rump and tumble play type of kid into football or soccer or anything like that. And so I was very weak and sensitive, and I think that just made me out to be very much a victim of people's harassment and bullying. And so I felt like, oh, I need to be changing, be more white, or I need to be more cool and boyish in these ways. So I would try to emulate at times other males, but I knew I was just like kind of bad at that. I'm like, I like art. I like to be, you know, into music or whatever have you. And so that was a very difficult time for me. I can only imagine being in Blaire's shoes, having to go through what she went through, because she felt totally abandoned. Like, she didn't have anywhere to go for support. And so ultimately the safest place for her was to transform herself into a woman. As a boy, to transform herself, you know, as a teenage boy, undergoing transition socially and then medically. Like, she totally transformed. It's crazy. And you look at a photo of her previously versus how she looks now. It's just two different worlds, right? And in one sense, I feel sympathy and proud, I would say, of her for being able to come out of it stronger, and the resiliency is just unparalleled. I mean, truly unparalleled. Of course, I would never want to transition my kid, or I wouldn't want to transition myself ever. Like, just because I was bullied for being effeminate or not as American in my masculinity in some ways. Looking back, I can see how much hurt that caused, where I don't even feel sometimes comfortable, but I worked through that myself. And for her, accepting that was something that other people did to me, whether it's my dad or my peers making fun of me, calling me names, abusing me. I'm guessing there's probably some sexual abuse hinting at it, but that can very much be disorienting, I think, for a lot of people, whether it's like soft white underbelly, that podcast showcasing people who are trans and other people who are prostituted. It's just a lot of brokenness, sexual brokenness, a lot of abuse and obscenity that really transfers into a child.
Do you have regrets?
With transition, no.
No. You're comfortable with where you're at right now?
More than comfortable. And that's actually the reason why I think people don't want to admit to themselves sometimes that maybe transition is partly a trauma response, is because they don't want to put it out there that like somehow it makes it less valid or not really them or a costume of sort.
Right.
And for me, the way I've thought about it is like, look what my body did to allow me to survive. Like, the trauma response is literally a survival mechanism. That's what they are.
This girl is brilliant. I truly believe it. And I would not, again, transition my kid or tell someone to transition. But if I was in her shoes, what would I have done? I don't know. And I think how she laid it out makes perfect sense. And how the therapist, David, here is obviously explaining it and saying, you know, you wanted to leave your body. You know, it's very dissociative. There's plenty of people, especially women, who have anxieties related to their bodies, even body dysmorphia, anorexia and binge eating, and all these different types of behaviors that are conducive to an external sense of self. That is how people perceive you. And if people always perceive you as bad, like obviously you're going to change things about this. This is a very extreme case where you are literally changing your gender. And I truly believe gender can never be separated from sex. And a lot of people are trying to separate them. Like, that makes no sense. And for her to admit that this is a trauma response, but she is proud of how she was able to go through with this trauma response of transitioning with gender, I give her kudos in a way. I don't love that I don't think it's ideal. I don't think transitioning is ideal. She goes into the lengths of how using estrogen has made her tired, and there's a lot of bad effects to it, and she has to wean off of them. And it's a science that's always growing, and it's nebulous, very, very nebulous. But she has had the tenacity and the strength, the wherewithal to actually go through with it and make something of herself.
So my body did this crazy elaborate thing, and I'm still here, and I'm the only successful person in my family, and I'm the, only person who's even began to look at these toxic patterns they all have that I broke.
Right.
It's like, to look at that and be like, that means I'm not actually Blaire or something. I am Blaire because I chose to be Blaire.
Yeah.
And I still am Robert. I still am that person too.
Right.
I'm all of it.
I love that. I love how you just articulate.
Blaire is totally honest about those identities that she still holds. Previously Rabu as a kid, and now Blaire as an adult. And it's just a very, very complicated, complex, rich development that Blaire has had. But ultimately, I think that it's really inspiring to how she's able to see herself through each phase. That self-awareness is just truly on another level here.
I mean, you could make the argument that everything we're doing is a trauma response. Like what I'm doing in some way, the skills that I've developed, the interests and the direction I've gone in my life is a response to things that happened to me in my childhood. I definitely know that's why I became an actor originally. I became an actor because I didn't feel seen as a child and I wanted to be seen. And I thought, if I could become an actor, become famous, then people are going to see me. And then, you quickly realize they don't see you at all. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
You're seen less, and in some way I was doing it to please my mother and to win over her love. So I don't think there's an escape from living our lives in response to what we experienced as children.
I agree.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting about that is, like, as you were kind of breaking down all the things you've realized about why you became an actor, I thought, like, what a shame that the world puts this stop sign in front of people who begin to question, why am I really trans? Or why are trans people really trans?
Yeah.
That the amount of real conversations you can have about it in this world is almost none. That's why I get so much hate from people, because the way I feel is like, how dare anyone tell me how to talk about my own experience, how I'm viewing this thing that I am, that I have, that is me, whatever.
That's so real.
How dare you try to limit my talk of that because it's politically inconvenient, and half the people that think it's politically inconvenient to talk about it aren't even trans themselves. Go away. I can talk how I want about my own shit, and if I come to false conclusions, then that's part of the journey. But I feel like I'm probably right about the trauma response thing.
Yeah. Well, the suspicion, of course, is when people are trying to stifle conversation that there's something they're hiding, there's something they don't want to face.
Yeah.
And you pick up on that because you have a bullshit detector that's very acute, and you want to speak it. It's just amazing to hear you say all these things, because I've had these thoughts, of course, but I don't want to say them out because,
trans people?
Well, just, gay, trans, that there's aspects of it that are a response to trauma. And because I've sat with people and I've talked to them and I've heard them say that, I wonder if I'm actually gay because of what happened to me with my dad, and clients
people have those real conversations in real life, but in online and in public discourse, people act as if these conversations don't happen, and if they do, they're completely invalid. And I hate that, because I'm like, there's a difference between saying things that are politically incorrect in terms of like you're just trying to be cruel or an asshole or whatever.
That's right.
But if people are trying to have real conversations about their own bodies, how fucking dare anyone tell them not to?
I can't believe he even lopped in gay, but I think that's true, because there are a lot of gay men that I know alongside of trans people who had it tough. It's just so apparent. Now, I'm not saying like, oh, because they were gay or because they were trans that they didn't go through things. Obviously they did, because like if you are seen as different, you're going to be treated differently. And I know that there are friends in my life, you know, who are gay, who identify as gay or etc., trans, who had traumas prior to them coming out, prior to them feeling like they were queer or different. There's a psychologist, a social worker therapist actually, that I interviewed, very well known. He's a gay therapist who actually came on my podcast, and he talks about in his book, you know, Is My Husband Gay, Straight or Bi? He talks about this, where there are these core sexual narratives, right, of how straight men will have sex with men because they have these trauma behaviors, because somebody traumatized them, sexually exploited them at a young age, and they go back to those behaviors. The same thing with pedophilia. You know, if you're abused at a young age, it's more likely that you will go on to abuse. Now, not everyone, thank God. Plenty of people who are abused at a small age who never go on to do that. But there are some people who are traumatized and they never work through it, and they have to basically shut that down or play out this role as like, okay, I abuse others since I was abused. However that plays out, I don't even know. But abuse is not something that one is politically correct, and no one wants to talk about it because it's really nasty to talk about. It's kind of gross. You know, it brings up a lot of abuse. Is not something that's fun to talk about. Okay, it's not fun to talk about, and so socially it's looked down, and individually we have really hard times getting to discourse about these catalysts, I would say, for our sexuality, for our gender identity. It's really a complete mess, and I think that Blaire and David here are completely right, absolutely right.
I look at so many people, particularly in the trans community, and like a lot of them are just so lost, you know? And then you count that now the trans community, in my opinion, isn't even really the trans community. It's not a community at all. Like, people are thinking they're trans when they're not, because people have broadened what it means to be this crazy thing, which also dilutes people's ability to understand what they are.
Yeah.
If I believed all the public narratives about trans, I would never come to really profound, valuable conclusions about my own life and about areas of my life that aren't even to do with trans, because it all bleeds into other things.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's a really important point. See, it's just the LGBTQ thing doesn't make any sense anymore, because everybody wants to be a part of it. Everybody wants to be trans these days. It's cool. It's the way to be able to give your life meaning, right? There's no true oppression, I would say, in the United States. Like, even for those who are truly oppressed, who come from bad backgrounds, immigrants, Black individuals, people of color, like, we've got it so good that we start looking at some of our own problems. And I think psychology is a big component of that. Psychology has been creating a lot of mental health disorders that continue to be misdiagnosed, misused, diagnoses that are misused to actually perpetuate a narrative such as gender dysphoria, becoming trans. And it's really destroying how we look at ourselves. Like, we can't make sense of ourselves anymore. So we go to these mental health institutions believing that these officials have all the answers, but really we don't. And so the client comes first. Like, the client, if they believe in nothing, if they don't believe in God, they don't believe in biology, they supersede all that. Their feelings matter more than anything. And that's where our society has been, you know, these past couple of decades. Our feelings matter more than how biology or how hard science actually informs our identity. Our feelings are more important. And that's why so much of our mental health states are abysmal. And you can see it plain as day. Look on TikTok. Go to these channels of people who are non-binary, who are using these neo-pronouns that make absolutely no sense. We are incentivizing gender dysphoria. We are incentivizing mental illness.
I see a lot of lost energy with people who are trans, and I think it's partly because they and society have like worked together to create this block from going any further beyond like a really superficial analysis of what it is. And I don't know how to pretend like that.
Has it been painful for you to be demonized in the way that you've been demonized and judged and hated?
At certain times, but
that's a lot to hold. Like, you hold a lot of negative transference. It's a lot of projection that's put on you, and you're just a person, you know. relatively young, and you started when you were very young, and all of this energy is coming at you, and that must have been a lot to handle.
Especially someone who represents so many intense things like I do to people. We are just mirrors to people. Like, they see what they want to see.
Yeah.
They see, what they expect to see. They will use the persona of you, the identity of you that they have or they perceive however they want. And it really has almost nothing to do with you.
That's right.
So if people now get mad over shit that I say, I know that everything I say is how I truly see things. And I also know I'm not some asshole who holds on to things forever and makes it my identity. My beliefs are not necessarily my identity. Like, I can change.
Right.
I've changed a lot, literally, physically, mentally, everything. Like, a lot of changes.
Yeah. Who protects you? Do you need protection?
In some ways, but in other ways,
Do you
maybe
want protection?
No.
But it's when you're talking, I have this impulse to like hold you, like I want to like hug you, like some protector comes up in me because I see that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a defense mechanism. I see it a lot of the times, even with my gay male friends, where they can kind of narcissistic, honestly, and they shy away from you because they don't feel safe around other, especially other men, because they have a damaged male ego, whatever it may be. And when you have somebody who has been abandoned, even like Black girls, I see a lot of the times with Black girls, especially, who have father wounds because their father left, right? Like, especially in the Black community, a lot of single parents, mothers, right, in the home only. And when they talk about their father, it's just like, no, don't leave them, don't leave them. It's because you have an avoidant attachment. You have avoidant attachment because it keeps you safe. It keeps you safe. It's just human nature. I mean, if you don't have a father figure, especially a parent that's there, that's reliable, you will just say, no, I don't need your love. And you'll keep to yourself so that you can protect yourself from ever getting disappointed.
That little boy, and I see all of this energy coming at you, and I know you can handle it. Like, I know you're strong, and there's this other part of me, talking about your dad or your mom not there. I just, like, my heart opens up to you in that place,
What a deep conversation we just endured. I am very impressed with David's professionality, and then also just there's self-awareness, her in-tune voice with herself, and Robert, the kid that he was. And so it's an amazing thing that we get to see here. I feel like this is honestly a piece of history that will come back one day. I truly believe in that. I think that people really shrug off these conversations because they're uncomfortable and that they don't go along with the grain. They go against the grain in so many ways, politically, socially, religiously, even. And for myself as a Christian, talking about sexuality and gender because they've affected me so much as a man, as someone who has come out from liberalism and those ideas. I've pursued Christ, for this past 8-9 years. I found that there's so much rich meaning in the narrative that He's given us. God's oriented us to live out a life that's glorifying to Him, that helps others, serves others in our communities, and we're meant to be agents that are built up because of our families. Rather, Blaire and so many of us have grown up in homes, myself included, broken homes with addiction, with infidelity, with abuse, cursing, and such, that had really destroyed relationships. But she has come out of it admirably. I don't think that anyone will completely agree with her. I feel like she's speaking so much of her own personal experience. You just can't disagree with that. And so that's something I take away. I'm very blown away, impressed. I admire both of these individuals for having such a very cogent, clear, and self-examining, thorough conversation about the past. And I really hope that you guys will see some of the realness, the raw realness of what trauma-induced transgenderism really is like. Hopefully we have more conversations like these about gender, about sexuality and such in the future in broader spaces. And I'm doing that already here on my podcast at John Chen Out's World. So please check that out so I can share more stories like this, whether it's Christian testimonies about sexuality, gender abuse, church abuse, etc. I really want to be able to get the message out there. So please like and subscribe so that I can do that. I appreciate and love you all. Thank you so much for listening. And please support your girl Blaire out as well by liking and following her as well on her pages. Thanks. Hope you guys have a good one. It's John for John Shoutouts the World. I'll see you next time.